Well, hello there, stamping friends. This is Traci Raether from Plum Crazy Stamping, and it's February 18th, 2026, and time for our card making lesson. It is Wednesday at 1 p.m. Central Time. As you're joining me today, please sign in the comments and let me know who you are and where you're watching from. And if you're on YouTube, please make sure you're signed into your YouTube account or your Google account, and you can use the comments there as well. If you have any questions on the project I'm doing or the technique that I'm showing you, please write them in the comments and I'll try to keep my eye on them to answer you. And even if you're watching this on the replay, please use the comments and you can ask questions and I will still get back to you. So let's go ahead, flip the camera down. I'm so excited today to not only share with you one of the 2026 trends in paper crafting, but also a masculine birthday card. So let's go ahead. I'm going to put the camera down here and say hi, Kelly. So nice to see you. And here is our masculine birthday card. I have a couple of really important guys in my life that have birthdays in March and April. So I thought I might start playing with some card ideas that they might like for their birthday. I also wanted to look at something that, was using some fun techniques. So we're going to be doing some embossing folder work, and we're going to remember the rule today. If you don't already know, you stamp and then you use the embossing folder. We're going to use some sponge daubers today. We're going to do fussy cutting, and we're going to just make a beautiful botanic birthday card. Okay, so I can't wait to get started here. I'm going to slide this up and out of our way. And so to make a botanical card, so one of the trends, natural botanicals texture. Those are things that are in paper crafting and also I think just in design for this year that are going to be popular. Now, this stamp set is still available in our online exclusives, and that's why I decided that I was going to use it today. And then the second thing, when I was thinking about birthdays, is this new Fabulous Saying stamp set, which is the product of the month from February. And now I did look online before I got started, and this is still available. So during the month of March, if you buy $75 worth of Stampin' Up! Products, you qualify to get a stamp set or a designer series paper packet for only $5. So a stamp set like this would be valued anywhere between $20, $24. This set you're going to find is so cool because the size of the sentiments are actually quite large, and you're going to, I think, be really surprised at how beautiful these are. I had started seeing them on examples that I was seeing on Pinterest and Facebook, and I'm like, wow, I got that. I'm going to take a peek, and you know what? They're perfect for the project today. All right, so let me set those off to the side. And then I was thinking about color and botanicals, and I chose copper clay, which is one of the retired in colors from 2023 to 2025. But I think this is such a pretty color. A little bit, I think, more nature than Cajun craze, and that's why I decided to use this. Now, this is just 8.5 by 5.5 and scored at 4 1/4, and it's going to fit in our regular envelope. And I decided, though, that I'm going to do it a little bit different than my norm, and I'm going to use it to make a landscape card today. So now we have our card base, card front here. And I decided also I'm going to make this with Very Vanilla instead of basic white. And then I thought, I want this to be a little dramatic. So I decided that I'm going to bring in basic black and actually create a very thin frame for the background that I'm actually going to be stamping on my Very Vanilla. Now, I always have the 4" by 5¼ sheets of basic white, Very Vanilla, and basic black available to me right by my crafting space because I use them all the time. But what I want to do is create a very thin 1/8 of an inch around my entire card front. So I'm going to have to trim this up. So I'm going to leave my black at the 4 by 5¼ and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to glue that right to the front of my card. And then I'm going to actually trim the Very Vanilla to prepare it to do my stamping. So just going to use a little of my multi-purpose mono-adhesive glue and center this on the copper clay. Okay, doesn't that already look pretty masculine? And we're going to be using Very Vanilla on the inside of this too. So we'll just keep this sitting here. And I also want to say hi, Kim. Nice to see you. And you know what, you guys? I put the computer a little far away. It's hard for me to read the detail that you said. Oh, you got your paper pumpkin in the mail. Wonderful. And hi, Kathy. Nice to see you. All right, let's go ahead now and trim up our focal point here that we're going to create our background for our card front. And just bring out my trimmer. And what I'm going to do that makes this really easy is, all right, so right now this is 5¼ inches. So I'm just going to slide it over 1/8 of an inch. So it's going to be right between 5 inches and 5¼ So it's really 5 and 1/8 here. So I'm really taking off a little bit, but this is what the thickness of the frame will be on my card front. And then I'm going to flip this the other direction, and where it was 4 inches, we're going to now do 3 7/8. And just take off that little bit again. Okay. And then let's just test it, make sure that I was doing my math. Every once in a while I get a little math challenged. And see how you can see the very thin but black frame around there, which is going to help the images pop because I'm going to be stamping them in black. Actually, I'm going to use my Memento Tuxedo Black on this card front for our design. So let me grab my Pierce mat because I want to make sure that I get a really nice image. And now I decided to take, in this stamp set for Natural Botanicals, there's actually 4 different types of leaves, and then there's 2 flowers. This is a masculine birthday card. They're not getting flowers this year. They're going to get all leaves. And then I have my basic, my Memento Tuxedo Black ink. Take the lid off of there. All right, and these big leaves, I'm going to start with those, and then I always build my background designs, large images first, and then the smaller images to fit in between. Okay, so, and I like to take the ink to my stamp when they're this large. I can really get a good look at whether or not I have it inked up well or not. So, and I tap as well as twist a little bit to make sure that I'm getting good ink. Now, one of the things when I was making this card earlier today is I had not used these stamps yet. And it's interesting, you need to what they call condition the stamp. So either, I have a little piece of lint on here, either, stamp a couple of times so that you break it in. And if there's any leftover oil or anything or lint on it from the production process. You get rid of that. And wash your stamp and dry it. That's another way to condition it. And I think my ink pad is starting to get a little worn. I'm losing little pieces of lint on it. They last a long time, but when they start dropping that, you might want to think about making a change. All right. So I have this all inked up. Let's go ahead and I'm going to put this right on one side. I want one of my larger images. And I'm deciding that I want them to be going up, but I will be putting some other leaf images going in different directions too to add interest to this background. All right, and I'm not going to wash it right away because I am going to use the edge of the leaves to create some more interest on here. But I'm going to take the next very large stamp, the second largest, or they're both pretty big, and I'm just going to ink this one up. All right. And now this one I'm also going to have go the upwards direction. And just place it straight down. And just going to press my fingers over all those leaves so I get the detail of all those ridges. And being on the pierce mat really does make a difference. I took off running when I was making this card earlier and hadn't put my pierce mat under there. Well, I had to do some fixing. So don't forget that. Now, you know what? Since I have this out, why don't I do a little bit of detail here from the top of this stamp. I'm going to have that come in kind of on the top here a little bit. Oops, sorry, shaking my camera and everything here. There we go. All right, I'm going to set that off to the side. All right, now I'm going to use the third largest one. Okay, and I'm going to stamp this again. Maybe different direction though. All right, and let's see, maybe a little bit on this other side. Okay, and now let's go with the smallest leaf that I have and kind of fill in some spots. I don't know if I can get this to fit right in between there. All right, kind of put the base of it here. I think I want to use my feathery top to this larger one over on the edge here. Okay, and maybe on the bottom. Okay. Oh, and then of course I got a little mark I don't want on there. Let's cover it up with another leaf. There. Now you don't even know it's there. All right, one other area here, right here. Okay, great. Now let me get these cleaned off. So now where did I put my chamois? That's the mystery. Oh, here it is. These are kind of inky, so I'm going to get them out of my way. So this chamois I've been using for 5 years. You can tell, well loved, well used, and still going strong. So that is awesome. And all you use is water. And then I have a rag that I dry them off with, and it works great. And then this is one of the stamp cases from the packaging of the stamps prior to their new packaging, which has just come out. All right, got that all cleaned up. Take that out of our way. And all right, so now we're ready to do the embossing because our stamping is done. And actually, I'm going to do some coloring, but I want to do that when the texture is there because that's going to add interest by just having the texture before I use the daubers. So let's put it in. I'm going to use the Painted Texture 3D. And when I put it in the embossing folder, I'm going to put it with the Stampin' Up label up to have the image pop up. If you want to deboss, then you would put the front towards the back of the folder. So, it's whatever you're looking for. No right, no wrong. Just do it the way that you want. All right, I'm going to just take this to my embossing machine here I have on the side, make my sandwich, and roll it through. And we can see the great texture that's on here, which adds more interest, right? It even feels good, when you feel it on the front of the card. All right, so now I want to add color. And I thought that greens would go really pretty with the copper clay. And I decided to keep them close in their shades of color. So I'm going to use Old Olive and Mossy Meadow. And I'm going to start with the lighter of the two first, the Old Olive. And I'm going to just get my dauber here. And I label the ones, especially the ones that I use over and over again. And I keep this for Old Olive. Sometimes I will rinse them when I'm done, and I'll use, a dauber for multiple colors like the reds, the yellows, whatever. And you could do that with greens too, but some of these I use them much more often. So I just keep one dauber. I've had this one for years for my Old Olive, and I'm going to just get a little of this off of here, and then I'm going to go over the area where the botanical images are, but not necessarily do the whole background. I want to leave some of the just very vanilla where it is, okay? Because I want to create like a multicolored background. I guess it's not going to be so much multi because I'm just going to use two greens and then leave the black ink with the texture I did. Now I stuck my finger in the ink. All right, let's see. Do I want to get any just lighter? Okay, Time to get Mossy Meadow, so I'll set this one aside. We'll close this one up. Hi, Patricia. We've got our Mossy Meadow. Get that opened up. Now this one is really dark. I just re-inked that pad. So I'm trying to get some of this off of here before I go over this leaf. That one got kind of dark. All right, and then, if you want to if you have a spot that's a little light and you want to just add a little green to it. All right, so that's as much ink as I want to add at this point. So you can really tell the differences. And as it dries, you'll see the tones of the two greens will definitely show more. I guess I really did a lot of concentration of the Mossy Meadow right there. But anyway, that is our background now for the front of our card. So let's do some more pieces and put these things together here. So I'm just going to glue this right on the front and keep that very thin black frame around here. And I love my mono adhesive glue because I can slide the card front, especially when you're trying to get this teeny tiny little frame equal. There we go. And it's just enough to show off the black ink. It almost looks like it's inked line around the card front. So there we go. Now I want to find a way to make the sentiment pop. So there's two things I did. I decided in the end I'm using this little bit thinner piece of copper clay, which is 5 1/4 inches by 3/4 inches. One of the things I did look at, though, was whether or not I wanted a thicker one like this. Okay. And then I also played with, do I want black ink or do I want green ink? So one of the things that I did is I tried the green ink on the copper clay. Now that's a much softer look, but it works. So that's one of the choices for doing this. That I decided I liked seeing more of the background, so I used the skinnier strip. And then I also liked the way the black ink popped a little more. So I'm just taking another piece of Very Vanilla. I'm going to actually stamp the happy birthday on here, and then I'm actually going to fussy cut it out. So let's just set this on our Pierce mat, because these are pretty thick letters, and to get them all the same, I am going to benefit from the padding that's on here since this is a photopolymer stamp. And I'm just going to ink this up. Remember, I'm tapping and I'm twisting a little bit, and I'm checking out if I am getting anything on my acrylic block or if there are those lint pieces. And that's more the issue. All right. And make sure always, it seems like the center of the sentiments is always the challenge. and the very edge of the letters that are at the beginning and the end. Okay. And then I am going to just, now if I were, I'm lining this up as if I were going to put it right across, but I'm actually going to fussy cut this because I think it's going to actually help it pop even a little bit more. So just pressing down firmly and picking up, and we've got our sentiment. I'm just going to set this up here because I'm going to do a sentiment on the inside. But I am going to fussy cut this. I'm getting my small scissors. And remember, fussy cutting is, some people like it, some people don't like it, and some people are like, I'll do it if I have to. So the thing is, as I'm fussy cutting, I'm going to move the paper, not my scissors, and that's how it helps me to have a smoother line. And where I can cut out some of the bulk along the way, I do that because then it doesn't get in the way of me making these very, small cuts. And you can go as close as you want and get this as detailed, or you could just make big bumps along the way, and that looks cool too. I'm going pretty close to the letters. One, so you can see how I do it, and two, I like that look. After you fussy cut a few of these, you'll be grateful when you see a sentiment set that has the dies to cut them out. It's a little faster then. But know that without the dies, you can still cut out your sentiments. You need a little patience. Now, I'm going to leave these linked. I'm going to follow the end of the Y to get me over to the beginning of the B. And I want to keep this together. You could choose to cut the words apart if you wanted to. Sometimes I like, a straight edge. Sometimes I don't. I think probably any day of the week, I might cut this out a little differently on those different days. So there's really no right or wrong, just go with it. What I like about this font is it's big enough to do this type of detailed fussy cutting. Not all fonts are large enough, to do more than a very, basic outline around them because the letters are so small. Sometimes I like to just go across all these letters. It's a good way to get all that bulk out of my way. So obviously, if you're in a hurry, you could just make this a banner on top of that solid piece of copper clay cardstock. One of the other things with the size of this sentiment is I'm going to be able to use dimensionals behind it and pop it up. So if it were a lot smaller, that would be more challenging. You could also, if you wanted to create this in a sticker, you could, before you stamp on your cardstock, you could actually put not masking paper, an adhesive sheet behind it. And then when you're done cutting this out, it would actually be a sticker. And you could just stick it on your card without having to deal with, glue that might come around the edges. All right. That H is bugging me. Okay, there we go. So let's get all these parts and pieces out of here. And let's look at, I do think that makes that look really special, when you take the time to cut that out. All right, so now the easy way to finish the front before we do the inside is I'm just going to glue down this piece of copper clay. And what I wanted to do when I was trying to determine how wide I was going to make this is I wanted to cover the black frame so that it looks like it's continuous with the card base. So I did make it the 5 1/4. And then when you line it up, it looks like it's an extension from the card base. The other thing is if you wanted this to be black, you might have wanted to cut it a little bit smaller so that it would look like it's part of the frame of the black. All right, let's use mini dimensionals and get those lined up on the back of our sentiment here. And I'm going to use my Take Your Pick tool to help me do that. These are the mini dimensionals, and I'm just going to find places along this sentiment where the mini dimensional fits. No magic number, just kind of going to go across and see where it fits. I actually got a little skinnier with this one than I did with my last one. So I'm going to take the edge of one of my used up things of dimensionals and actually use this on the edge and right here. And maybe I want one more. So don't throw this away. I use every bit of my dimensionals. Okay, then I'm just going to take all that adhesive covering off of here. So we've got this little piece right here. And those I think I got. Oh, not this one though. Get that little piece off. And then try not to have it be stuck to your finger, right? Okay. And then I'm just going to center this on the front. Trying to center it top to bottom of the little copper clay and from side to side. All right, and then I wanted to embellish this And I thought any dimensionals that you have that look, this is not shiny. I found the gold looked funny. Um, I liked this because this was not shiny. And these are actually called, they were the Wildly Flowering Suite. So they were adhesive-backed texture dots. They don't have those any longer in the catalog, but you can find some of these that look more rustic. And I'm just going to put one on this side, and we'll have one on the other side to kind of make it look like we hammered that in, for our botanicals. So you can see that up close. And then I decided I wanted a little bit more, but I still wanted to stay a little bit on the down low. So I found some copper clay, and there's 3 sizes, large, medium, and really small. I'm going to use the really small ones. So when you kind of look for them, you'll see them, but they're not going to pop out at you because I think that trying to keep with the more botanical theme of them being a little, undercover. Oops. Get that one. Let's see. I think we'll put that right up here. Using 3 and kind of going in a triangular look. So you can kind of see I put them somewhat by the branches. Okay. And then for inside, to do something just a little different. So we'll open up our card. As I said, I'm going to do the very vanilla. But I thought this was a little, so I wanted to tone it down, and I thought I would have it kind of match by putting this along the front. But before I do anything gluing, let's go ahead and do our stamping and make sure it turns out the way we want it to, because remember, if it doesn't, we can always flip our cardstock, right? So I've got this kind of centered, and I'm going to put my sending love right on the bottom of this. So make it look just a little different than probably usual. And we'll get this one stamped up. And I'm going to use the black ink. If you wanted to get some green inside the card, I would use the Mossy Meadow, the darker of the two, but really you could use Old Olive or Mossy Meadow. But I really liked the way the black popped. All right, and so then I'm going to have it kind of be right above where I'm going to put that cardstock. There we go. Now I'm going to glue down my strip here. Leave a little stripe. Sometimes when I use patterned paper, I like to go right to the edge. But if I'm just using colored cardstock, I like to make it look like a stripe like that. And then I'm going to glue it inside the card. So I think outlined in the copper clay, the sending love really stands out. And there is our masculine birthday card. And had I thought of it, doing the flap of a very vanilla envelope or the side with a mask in place with this same design would be absolutely gorgeous for them to see when it comes in the mail. So this is our masculine botanical birthday card. So thank you for looking at that. I have a couple of announcements of things that are going on. Let me look at your comments. Let's see. Well, I think I've said hi to everybody that signed in, but let me go ahead and let's share some announcements and get up to speed. So, one of the things that I want you to know is right now, so February 18th to the 20th, so it's starting today for 3 days only, free shipping of any Stampin' Up! Order, $75 or more. And that's about an 11% savings. So, FYI, I got to get my order in. Then we have a new stamp positioning device. So if any of you knew the Stamparatus, this one is a little different and has a few different features. I would say one are the improved magnets. And then it has this smaller plate that moves along a larger plate to do aligning of images. And then also what's really cool is the feet on this little piece, actually, and the larger piece. When you put the stamps on the bottom, until you push down lightly, the stamp does not stamp. It gives you that opportunity to check if you have it where you want it. And then there are these little things that deflate, and actually then you press the image. And if you need to re-ink because something didn't get inked up, you can do that and put it back in the same exact place to have that happen. This is a $49 value. And right now, if you would want to sign up with Stampin' Up!, become a member of the Plum Crazy Stamping team, you can get this for free. Plus, you get $125 worth of Stampin' Up! Products for $99, and then some other fun things as a part of the Getting Started offer. And if you would like to just talk about what that means and explore this, don't hesitate to contact me at Traci, Traci, at plumcrazystamping.com. And a lot of people do this to get a discount, 20 to 25% on their products. You don't have to sell. You don't have to do classes. There is a minimum of getting $300 worth of products in a quarter. So, if there's something that you'd like to get, or a suite a month, or get some paper pumpkin, that would really take care of that minimum for you. I was actually a hobby demonstrator for 3 years before I actually actively started Plum Crazy Stamping. One of the other things that this is my product that I'm highlighting. I've been using it in the classes I've been doing last night and the week before. And this is the Lovely Blossoms Sweet Collection. And this is just gorgeous. This is the designer series paper that goes with it. In addition, there is 3 pieces that have actually panels that you can cut out that are already card fronts. And then on the back of that is a stripe that's really pretty. Then there is ribbon that is cloud cover, and it's textured, and it is so soft. I actually used it as a ribbon around a gatefold card, and it was actually so easy to tie. I know tying some of our ribbon can be a challenge. Then there are little glossy dots that are in Secret Sea, Old Olive, Cloud Cover, and Basic White. And then this is a strip of the embossing folder called Lovely Stripes, which is also in this suite. And then there are blossoms, 2 different types, as well as a set of 3 leaves that can stamp, and then all of these sentiments. So much like the sentiment or the stamp set Fabulous Sayings, this stamp set, I love the size of these sentiments. They're actually quite large, and they are beautiful on card fronts and inside. And then this is bundled with some dies that do background dies. So these little flower images, as well as this series of circles in this grid. And then there are the 2 sentiment labels that cut out. And then there's also a 2-leaf sprig here and 1 leaf, which are really pretty. And let me just show you one card we made last night in our Fun Fold class, and that's with this beautiful suite of products. So this is one of those panels that I said are on that sheet of paper, and then just combining it with matching designer series paper. So this is all stuff that goes together. And then, yet another sentiment to go in here. So this was from the Fun Fold class, but using that set. Now, tomorrow, Stampin' Up! Is doing a Lovely Blossoms class for $25 online. And so you can purchase that class in my online store. And then you'll be able to view it later. It's actually delivered in a Facebook group, and you can watch that over and over as a replay. And it's using the Lovely Blossoms stamp set. And so then with a $75 purchase now, we have these new product of the month. And the product this month is Painted Illusions, which is a set of designer series paper that you can get for $5. And then until the ones from the previous months run out, you can still get them. And I know that this is still available. And that's what I used today, the Fabulous Sayings. And then the first product of the month was December, and that was the True Blue Florals, which are still available. Now, any person that is a Stampin' Up! Customer can only buy one of these. So you can't get 3 of the True Blue Florals or, a number of these stamp sets. You can just get one. But I've gotten all 3 of these, and I have been just delighted with them. And then the last thing is another bonus that I'm giving for over a $50 purchase from Plum Crazy Stamping this month in February is Nature Walk. And this is a stamp set and dies that are a bundle. And I thought this went really well with that botanical theme for 2026. But now if you don't have this or you're not interested in the botanicals and would more like to go in florals or another direction, these 4 card designs with very detailed instructions could be used with any of your products and any suite, but it's 4 card designs because I know everyone struggles with coming up with card designs and paper crafting project designs. So that's the news of what's going on in promotions and products that are available. Next month, March coming up, is going to be National Craft Month. So I'm planning for all of that, and I'm getting really excited to give you information on that. Next week, I am going to do the card making lesson one day early. It's going to be on Tuesday because I'm going to be hitting Florida for a little while, a little vacation with my husband. We're going down to visit friends, and so very excited. So I will be early next week, and the following week it's going to be late because after I come back, I'll do the paper pumpkin workshop on Friday of that week instead of Wednesday. And all those dates will be in my weekly email for you. So you'll know how to tune in and get some more card making projects and inspiration. So once again, with that, don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions about what I shared today. And once again, that's Traci, Traci, at plumcrazystamping.com. Thank you so much for tuning in today, and happy stamping. And don't forget to leave your comments, questions, and I'll get back to you. Take care, friends. Bye-bye now.